With this model that we're going to take a look at, we've got a chair entity that's going to come into the activity powder coat paint, and the goal of this activity, or this tutorial that we're showing you right now, is that we're going to show you how to set up a variable counter that consists of the level that the paint is at currently. Due to every entity that comes into the powder coat activity is painted with a powder coating, and then exiting, this paint level will be affected by each part that's painted. And what we want to do over time is once it hits a certain level, we want to replenish that back up to its maximum capacity again. So the way that we can do this is if we first go in and create our first variable. You can do this by right-clicking on your layout and then selecting variables and elements. Once you've selected it, create your first variable. Let's name it vPaintLevel. Make the type a real. We're going to set the initial value to 300 and then make sure that the stats are observation-based. Once you've created this, the last thing you're going to want to do is click on the checkbox for the graphic, and you should notice that this counter will now be placed on your layout, and it is also reflecting the name of the variable we created, vPaintLevel. Now, if you remember, we set this to 300 as the initial value. So the last step that we need to take is to go into the activity itself and set up some logic to let it know when it has to replenish. So if you can see here, we're going to go into the logic, and we're going to create an if-else statement. So you'll see that if the paint level is greater or equal to 10, in other words from the 300, if it gets down to 9 or below, it will then decrement this much. So it's going to start at 300. If it is greater than or equal to 10, so of course most of the time it's going to be that, it's going to simply decrement by 0.6. Otherwise, if it does get to a numeric value that is less than 10, it will replenish the vPaint level back to 300. And let's say, for example, that the 300 stands for gallons. What the decrement does is it takes away from the 300 gallons 0.6 gallons. And you'll notice that in our counter as we simulate the model here. And so as you can see, as we begin to simulate, and every entity that comes through, it is going to take away that 0.6 gallons, if that's what in fact your paint level is going to be, and it will slowly dwindle from the 300 initial down to the minimum value that we had set before it to replenish again. Now if we were to go ahead and speed up this animation to about this speed, you will see that it's going to get almost to 0 and then go right back up to 300. And it will repeat this throughout the cycle of the simulation run. So now to show you what this can also benefit us in, we're going to go ahead and click on yes to view the output results. And as you can see here with the variable that we created, the vPaintLevel right here, we've got a cycle time of 200 hours for which the simulation ran. And you can see here with the variable we started at about 300 gallons, and slowly over time with each entity it took roughly about 50 hours for it to get down to the minimum level before it was replenished again back up to 300. And again, we can see this pattern throughout the model of how it's depleted with each entity and then replenished again once it hits that minimum value.